Good afternoon, boys and girls. It's 1 o'clock. It's just 1:03. I'm a couple minutes late. I had to get Dylan on his class Zoom conference. The sun is out finally, so hopefully you got your work done this morning and you're able to go outside and get some fresh air. It's supposed to be, I think, in the 60s today, so that's a good thing. I hope that all of you did your work this morning. So you're reading for 15 to 30 minutes and then your Google summary. And then your iReady path. You didn't have to do a lesson today. I saw that some of you were on iReady for like over an hour. That shouldn't have been the case. The only thing that I wanted you to do is your path assignment. So your 15 minutes of just kind of like doing it in your centers for iReady, 15 to 20 minutes of iReady time, 15 minutes really for your path. There are 2 assigned teachers lessons, but we're not doing those. We're going to do them later on. So if you see those assigned to you, you don't have to do those yet. Just do your path. And then your story works from this morning. So I kind of made a video telling you how to get onto Storyworks. I had a link there. The links work for some of you and not all of you. If that happens, just go back to the Storyworks Junior homepage and then sign in using Main Road as your password. If you sign in with Main Road as your password, then when you do your Google form for your pause and think questions, you have to put in your email address to submit your answers. If you don't know your email address, let me know and I'll give it to you either through a private message through Class Dojo or, you can use Class Dojo for your parents or Google Classroom, send me a private message and I'll give you your email address. But 34 of you so far out of 42 have done that for me, so that's great. I want you to write complete sentences for those pause and think questions. Remember, we don't want to start our sentences with the word because that entails that you're not going to write a complete sentence. Remember, put your question in your answer and then complete your answer with supporting evidence to support your answer. So that first pause and think question, why was the narrator mad at Jeremy? Basically, in the first part of the story, we learned that Jeremy did not like, we weren't sure if Jeremy didn't like the narrator, the little boy, but we did know that he laughed at him when he struck out the narrator. So Jeremy laughed at the narrator when they were playing baseball and he struck him out. And also Jeremy had a big party, a trampoline party in his backyard, and he didn't invite the narrator. So those were 2 reasons why the narrator put Jeremy on his enemy list. That's how I kind of wanted you to answer that question. You could have started by saying the narrator did not like Jeremy because he laughed at him when he struck him out and he didn't invite him to his trampoline party. That's kind of how I wanted you to answer those questions. So I will give them back to you later on today and you can look over them. And that was it. That's all I had you do today. So not too hard. iReady path, reading summary, read for 15 to 30 minutes, and then your Storyworks Junior story. Today, I am going to read chapter 8, I think. We haven't done this since Thursday, so kind of have to go back over. Somebody's putting tabs in this book on where I left off. Maybe it's Izzy. I don't know. We read chapter 6, so that tab has to come off. Let's see. Did we read chapter 7? Captain Cook builds a nest. Yes, we learned that Captain Cook took a lot of stuff from the house and built his own little nest in the last chapter. Penguin's Promenade. So that's where we left off. Okay. So I'll stick this here. And Frankie Cipottone over the weekend told me, his mom told me, that he named one of his new chickens or new chicks Captain Cookie, I think. So he named one of his chicks after Captain Cook, the penguin. So that was kind of cool. All right, so chapter 8, Penguin's Promenade. I think we discussed what it means to promenade. It means to walk. So a place to walk around is a promenade. Mr. Popper soon found that it was not so easy to take a penguin for a stroll. Captain Cook did not care at first for the idea of being put on a leash. However, Mr. Popper was firm. He tied one end of the clothesline to the penguin's fat throat and the other to his own wrist. "Ork," said Captain Cook indignantly. Still, he was a very reasonable sort of bird, and when he saw, I'm making a movie in my mind right now of a penguin walking on a leash. It's kind of funny. Saw that he was protesting did him no good, he recovered his customary dignity and decided to let Mr. Popper lead him. Mr. Popper put on his best Sunday derby. Derby is another name for a hat. And opened the front door with Captain Cook waddling graciously beside him. "Gaw," said the penguin, stopping at the edge of the porch to look down at the steps. Mr. Popper gave him plenty of clothesline leash. "Gork," said Captain Cook, and raising his flippers, he leaned forward bravely and tobogganed down the steps on his stomach. That's pretty cool. Mr. Popper followed, though not in the same way. Captain Cook quickly got up on his feet again and strutted to the street ahead of Mr. Popper with many quick turns of his head and pleased comments on the new scene. Down Proudfoot Avenue came a neighbor of the Poppers, Mrs. Callahan, with her arms full of groceries. She stared in astonishment when she saw Captain Cook and Mr. Popper, looking like a larger penguin himself in his black tailcoat. "Heavens have mercy on us," she exclaimed as the bird began to investigate the striped stockings under. When I show you the picture. So you get to see what Mrs. Callahan looked like. Down her house dress. "It isn't an owl, and it isn't a goose." "It isn't," said Mr. Popper, tipping his Sunday derby. "It's an Antarctic penguin, Mrs. Callahan." "Get away from me," said Mrs. Callahan to Captain Cook. "An anteater, is it?" "Not an anteater," explained Mr. Popper. "Arctic. It was sent to me from the South Pole." "Take your South Pole goose away from me at once," said Mrs. Callahan. Mr. Popper pulled obediently at the clothesline, while Captain Cook took a parting peck at Mrs. Callahan's striped stockings. "Heaven preserve us," said Mrs. Callahan. "I must stop in and see Mrs. Popper at once. I would never have believed it. I will be going now." "So will I," said Mr. Popper as Captain Cook dragged him off down the street. Their next stop was at the drugstore at the corner of Proudfoot Avenue and Main Street. Here, Captain Cook insisted on looking over the window display, which consisted of several open packages of shiny white boric crystals. These he evidently mistook for polar snow, for he began to peck at the window vigorously. I wonder if he misses the snow. I'm guessing he probably does. Suddenly, a car wheeled to the nearby curb with a shriek of his brakes, and two young men sprang out, one of them bearing a camera. "This must be it," said the first young man to the other. "It's them, all right," said the second young man. The cameraman set up his tripod on the sidewalk. By this time, a small crowd had gathered around, and two men in white coats had come out of the drugstore to watch. Captain Cook, however, was still too much interested in the window exhibits to bother to turn around. "You are Mr. Popper of 432 Proudfoot Avenue, aren't you?" asked the second young man, pulling a notebook out of his pocket. "Yes," said Mr. Popper, realizing that his picture was about to be taken for the newspaper. The two young men had, as a matter of fact, heard about the strange bird from the policeman, and had been on their way to the Popper house to get an interview when they saw Captain Cook. "Hey, Pelican, turn around and see the pretty birdie," said the photographer. Pelican, it's not a pelican. "That's no pelican," said the other, who was a reporter. "Pelicans have a pouch in their bills." "I think it was a dodo. Only dodos are extinct." "This will make an elegant picture if I ever get her to turn around." "It's a penguin," said Mr. Popper proudly. "Its name is Captain Cook." "Gook," said the penguin, turning around now that they were talking about him. Spying the camera tripod, he walked over and examined it. "Probably thinks it's a three-legged stork," said the photographer. "This bird of yours," said the reporter, "is it a he or a she? The public will want to know." Mr. Popper hesitated. Well, I call it Captain Cook. That makes it a he, said the reporter, writing rapidly in his notebook. Still curious, Captain Cook started walking around and around the tripod, till the clothesline, the penguin, Mr. Popper, and the tripod were all tangled up. At the advice of one of the bystanders, the tangle was finally straightened out by Mr. Popper's walking around the tripod 3 times in the opposite direction. At last, Captain Cook, standing still beside Mr. Popper, consented to pose. Mr. Popper straightened his tie, and the cameraman snapped a picture. Captain Cook shut his eyes, and this is the way his picture appeared later on in all the newspapers. One last question, said the reporter. Where did you get your strange pet? From Admiral Drake, the South Pole explorer. He sent him to me for a present. Yeah, said the reporter. Anyway, it's a good story. The 2 young men jumped into the car. Mr. Popper and Captain Cook continued their walk with quite a crowd following and asking questions. The crowd was getting so thick that in order to escape, Mr. Popper led Captain Cook into a barbershop. The man who kept the barbershop had, up to his time, been a very good friend of Mr. Popper's. And chapter 9 is called In the Barbershop. So now we're going to find out what's going to happen with Mr. Popper and Captain Cook in a barbershop. How many of you have been to a barbershop? I'm guessing some of the boys have been to the barbershop to get their hair cut. As you can see, Mr. D's hair is starting to come in a little bit. Yes, I do have hair from time to time. So I'm letting it grow in for a little bit. With that being said, so I'm kind of really getting into this book. This is kind of fun. We may do some different activities with this book. I'm trying to kind of plan some lessons here around Mr. Popper's Penguin. So that might be coming soon. So we might do something, even taking a virtual tour or a virtual field trip to the South Pole. I thought that would be something that we could be cool to do, especially for my Mrs. Colonna's social studies class. Maybe taking a virtual trip to the South Pole would be Antarctica would be a pretty cool thing to do, especially since we're going to get into oceans and continents in a few weeks. So we learned that Captain Cook is starting to become famous in the town, and now they made the paper, which is kind of cool. All right, so tomorrow we'll do chapter 9. Tomorrow is Tuesday, so there will be no social studies. It's library day. Tomorrow, my lesson plans for you look like, again, your iReady path, your reading summary. We are going to do a graphic organizer on Enemy Pie again, and I'm going to give you a daily edit as well. So you're going to have one of those paragraphs, and you're going to have to correct those paragraphs and write it the correct way. I'm going to model that in a video just to make sure that you are aware of how to do that correctly. And then we get into Wednesday, and I have some things planned for you for Wednesday. And then Thursday, you're going to take a quiz on Enemy Pie. It's going to be on Google Forms, and I'm going to have you read the story one more time and then take your quiz. And you're also going to work on your writing your animal research paper as well. So we're going to get to starting to write our first and second paragraphs for our first and second questions that I'm going to have you research. So your first question is, what does your animal look like? Your physical characteristics of your animal. And then your second question, if I can remember correctly, I believe it was probably diet. What does your animal eat? Is it an omnivore? Omni means both. Is it a carnivore? Carnivores eat meats. Herbivore? Herbivores eat plants. And where can they find this food? What is the food? How often do they eat? So I want you to do some research on those first two questions. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, you'll be completing that in your writing activity and lesson for Thursday. And then Friday is going to be your makeup day. So any kind of lessons that you didn't get to on Friday, you will have a makeup day just like you did last week. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully everything is going well. You will be getting your email. You should have your email addresses if you don't let me know but you will be able to use your emails, I think, starting tomorrow. So that's another way that you can communicate with me. So you will be able to ask me questions through email as well. So that's a great way, and you can send me different kinds of things as well. So that's going to be nice. That's opened up, and you can start emailing as well. We're trying to get at least some kind of conferencing going here. I'm hoping, I think they're going to focus more on Google Meets first and then Zoom later. That's just my impression. I kind of like Zoom better because everybody can get on at the same time. You can do that with Google Meets, but it doesn't show everybody all at the same time. It only shows like 5 or 6 people at the time, and it kind of it works the same, but it's I like Zoom's integration a little bit better. It just works. The flow is just much better, but we'll see. Hopefully that we'll get some guidance tomorrow from Mrs. Morley on whether or not we can start using that for lessons and check-ins and that kind of thing. And I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. All right, so that's our day today. Make sure you do Mrs. Colonna's work too. She wants to make sure that you're doing your math lessons and your science lessons, and hopefully everything is good. I'm kind of hoping that we get through the next couple of weeks and we get back to school, because I am missing school a little bit. It's nice to spend time with your family, but I think after this week and next week, I think everybody, and then spring break, I think everybody's going to be ready to get back to normal, hopefully. We'll see if that happens or not. All right, looks like we got a good turnout today. It's awesome. Nice to see you guys listen to Mr. Popper's Penguins. This will be posted if you missed it. And I'm not going to ask you a question today, but sometimes I will ask you a question after the video. I'll attach a comment or post this as an assignment and give you something to write about. So make sure you check these videos, because sometimes they'll have questions and sometimes they won't. But today, I'm not going to give you a question. I want you to get outside, enjoy the nice sunny day, and have a great rest of your Monday. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.